Today, we're going to quickly go through the 16 emperors of the Ming Dynasty. The Ming Dynasty lasted for a total of 276 years. There were 16 emperors, and each one was quite unique. The first founding emperor, Zhu Yuanzhang. He's like a novel's main character. Starts with nothing, relies on luck and hard work, and was a shepherd until he was 17. Then he ran off to become a monk for 8 years. So he was 25 years old. After that, he became a beggar for 3 years. By 28, he had transformed from a shepherd boy to a young beggar. By almost 30, he spent another 12 years turning from a beggar who feared others into an emperor who others feared him like he took a power pill overnight. At 40, he became emperor. Here's the best part. There's a saying that a good childhood heals a lifetime, while a bad one requires a lifetime to heal. Zhu Yuanzhang's way to cope was simple: execute people. It's like a typical emperor's habit. All his original partners were killed. Basically, anyone who had contributed significantly, anyone who could be called a founding hero, was executed. The highest official among them was the prime minister, Wu Yang. In ancient times, the prime minister was second only to the emperor, holding not just rank but real power. They could challenge the emperor to the point of making him doubt his own life. The original purpose of the prime minister was to balance the emperor's power and prevent the emperor from getting too arrogant. When Wu Yang was prime minister, he was outstanding. Even before Zhu Yuanzhang became too arrogant, Wu Yang already was. He dominated the court, built his power base, and formed cliques for personal gain. He did everything that even slightly hinted at rebellion. You have to wonder what he was thinking. Zhu Yuanzhang decisively executed Wu Yang for treason. But Wu Yang was a treasure trove. When the scheming officials dug into his connections, they uncovered over 30,000 people, including retired officials and the previous prime minister, Li Shanchang. All these people were ultimately sent down by Zhu Yuanzhang to accompany the scheming officials. You think that's the end? Far from it. Zhu Yuanzhang not only executed over 30,000 people, but he also abolished the position of prime minister. In other words, Wu Yang became the last prime minister in Chinese history. He not only ended his own life, but also ended the nearly 2,000-year tradition of the prime minister role. At this point, Zhu Yuanzhang's habit of executing people made Wu Yang even more stressed. After abolishing the prime minister, he wasn't satisfied and felt that local officials might also cause trouble. These things are widespread. He needed a way to keep an eye on them. So he created the Jinyue, who all wore Feiyu uniforms and carried embroidered daggers. Their main feature was their sharp appearance. They were directly controlled by the emperor and held very high status. If they caught a criminal, they could execute them before reporting it. Simply put, no matter how high your rank was, if the Jinyue suspected you, they could kill you first. Because they had too much power, the Jinyue did a lot of bad things. Skilled people were killed by them in large numbers. By the time Zhu Yuanzhang reached his later years, he probably felt his childhood issues were mostly resolved. Finally, he disbanded the Jinyue. Now, let's move on to the second emperor of the Ming Dynasty, who was even more unconventional. Emperor Zhu Yunwei. He was the grandson of Zhu Yuanzhang. Zhu Yuanzhang's sons were mostly stationed at the frontiers defending against foreign enemies. Each one was a powerful regional prince with their own armies. Zhu Yunwei could have been a good emperor, being gentle and kind by nature. But the Zhu family had a very strong trait. That trait was paranoia. Zhu Yunwen perfectly inherited his grandfather Zhu Yuanzhang's gene. He felt that his uncles were too powerful. Each one was a powerful prince with their own armies, which made him feel very insecure. So he decided to weaken the princes. But his thinking was on par with Wu Yang's. If you want to weaken the princes, just do it one by one. He didn't want to do it one by one. He wanted to eliminate them all at once, like playing a game. As his uncles saw they were about to be collectively eliminated, they decided to rebel together. Leading the rebellion was Zhu Di, Zhu Yunwen's fourth uncle, who became the third emperor of the Ming Dynasty. As Emperor Chengzi, Zhu Di accomplished major things upon ascending the throne. First, he moved the capital from Nanjing to Beijing. The reason was simple: I was a prince there, and I'm familiar with the Beijing area. Just being willful. After all, I'm the emperor. Beijing was very close to the border pass, Shanhai Pass. This is the origin of the emperor guarding the nation's gates. The second thing was even more impressive. He heavily utilized eunuchs. Among them was a eunuch who was famous worldwide at the time. He organized a massive fleet to sail to the western oceans. He was Zheng He. At the same time, Zhu Di established a new secret service organization. All members were eunuchs. This was the famous Eastern Depot. Additionally, he revived the Jinhua. Both secret service organizations were directly controlled by him, together called the Changwei. After Zhu Di, there were two more emperors, Emperor Renzong and Emperor Xuanzang. The father and son basically continued Zhu Di's policies, but Emperor Xuanzang, Zhu Yuanzhang, had an unusual hobby, fighting crickets. This hobby is like eating stinky tofu. People who like it understand your taste, and those who don't think you like it. But it doesn't matter because it's just a personal hobby. However, what was impressive about these two was that, with nothing better to do, they actually started teaching eunuchs to read. Now things got serious. When they were uneducated, they could produce a Jiagao notorious youth. With education, what could stop them? As a result, the Ming Dynasty truly produced Wei Zhongxiang. Of course, that's a story for later. Through the relentless efforts of Zhu Di, Emperor Renzong, and Emperor Xuanzang over 3 generations, they successfully led the 6th emperor, Emperor Yingzong, of the Ming Dynasty, to fall precisely into the eunuch trap. Emperor Yingzong had a eunuch named Wangzhen, who was ruthless even when he was young. He willingly castrated himself to become a eunuch. At that time, there was a trend of eunuch study. He was educated and knew how to flatter. He successfully gained Emperor Yingzong's trust. Then he gradually manipulated Emperor Yingzong to his downfall. At that time, the Ming Dynasty had two external enemies, the Oirats and the Tatars. Both forces were pretty much equal, constantly fighting in Mongolia and taking turns being the leader. They would come to harass the Ming borders whenever they felt like it. They'd raid and steal one day, then come back the next day to harass again, extremely persistent. It's like eating enoki mushrooms last night and seeing them again the next day. That's them. Although they often harassed the borders, as tributaries, they were supposed to pay tribute to the Ming Dynasty annually. At that time, Grand Eunuch Wangzhen was in charge of receiving them. He didn't give these to any face and verbally humiliated them. He successfully made the Oirats and Tatars historically join forces, from enemies to rulers. As a result, these two archrivals temporarily ceased hostilities and teamed up to attack the Ming Dynasty. Grand Eunuch Wangzhen probably thought that after gaining some knowledge, he could start persuading the emperor to lead a personal military campaign. Talking about dragon power and boosting morale, such nonsense, Ming Yingzong actually fell for his tricks. Halfway through the journey, they realized, oh my god, war is so dangerous and deadly. So the emperor decided to turn back. If you're going home, just go straight to the capital. No need to detour and take the emperor to visit your hometown. They said this would help ease the emperor's stress. Ming Yingzong actually fell for his tricks again. As a result, these two clever guys were caught by the enemy army. They were taken back to Mongolia as hostages. At this point, the Ming Dynasty was completely confused. Suddenly, the emperor was gone. What to do now? Then a minister stepped forward. With lightning speed, he successfully placed Ming Yingzong's brother, Ming Dazong, on the throne. He became the 7th emperor of the Ming Dynasty. This minister was named Yu Qin. Walla and Dada, these two guys, later tried to use Ming Yingzong to blackmail the Ming Dynasty. Yu Qin shut them down with just a few words. They had no leverage, so Walla and Dada thought the emperor hostage wasn't useful and released him. The current emperor, Ming Dazong, was left bewildered. What kind of foolish move was that? Just keep the hostage without breaking the deal. What do you mean by backing out? Emperor Chen returned. Should I abdicate or not? One night, while he was sick and angry, a group of ministers placed Ming Yingzong back on the throne. Ming Dazong never understood why a hostage held abroad was more qualified to be emperor than him. Is being a hostage really that impressive? Even sadder, the reinstated Yingzong removed Daizong from the family registry. Daizong didn't even make it into the 13 tombs before he died. Later, Ming Yingzong passed the throne to his son, Ming Xianzong, the 8th emperor of the Ming Dynasty. Ming Xianzong was even weirder. He was obsessed with eunuchs to the core. He firmly believed that eunuchs were like underwear. You must have them, but they can't belong to anyone else. So he established a second secret service agency besides the Dongchang, the infamous Zichang. At its peak, the Zichang completely overshadowed the Jinyue and Dongchang. This was Ming Xianzong's biggest blemish. The 9th emperor of the Ming Dynasty, Ming Shaozong, He was a rare good emperor, generous, capable, and sharp-eyed. During his reign, there were no foreign threats. Eunuchs were mostly just a bit corrupt, and his own uncles were very honest, managing the country smoothly. However, he was in poor health and passed away at 36. At this time, the 10th emperor, Ming Dynasty, ascended the throne. He was someone both blessed and cursed by fate. During his reign, all sorts of problems arose. Foreign invaders, traitorous ministers, and rebellions, nothing was spared. The key issue was his reckless personality. Since he ascended the throne at 15, he was only focused on chasing girls. He couldn't be kept in the palace at all. As long as there were lovely ladies outside, he had to go out. If anyone tried to stop him, he'd make their lives miserable. Eventually, he just built a nightclub in the palace. He named it Baofeng. It was filled with exotic creatures and beautiful internet-famous women he had gathered. With such a frivolous emperor, the Ming Dynasty should have fallen, but fate protected it. The Mongols invaded with their armor. Wuzong was like he was on some kind of power-up, insisting on leading the army personally. As a result, he achieved a great victory, completely subduing the Mongols. When a family member rebelled, he was thrilled to lead the campaign personally. Little did he know, halfway, the rebellious Prince Ning was dealt with by Wang Yangming, the then prefect. By the time Wuzong met Prince Ning, he had been held by Wang Yangming for 6 months. The playful Wuzong sometimes handed over state affairs to the Grand Eunuch Liu Jin. Liu Jin kept Wuzong confused, and the Baofeng nightclub was something he tricked Wuzong into establishing. Later, someone reported Liu Jin flaunting his power in court. Wuzong decisively had him executed without a second thought. It was so swift that nothing much was left. Foreign enemies, rebellious princes, and traitorous ministers were all dealt with, leaving no threats behind. Doesn't this feel a bit like a novel protagonist? But when fate favors you, you can be reckless without consequences. When fate turns against you, even a sip of water can drown you. One day, Wuzong wanted to go fishing but ended up catching pneumonia and died. Wuzong lived a wild life and died while slacking off during war. The key point is he lived a wild life without having a son. So he had to pass the throne to his cousin, Ming Shizong, the 11th emperor of the Ming Dynasty. This guy was obsessed with alchemy and potion making. The ingredients for his potions had to be collected from the monthly visits of palace maids' relatives. So the palace maids couldn't eat anything random. They could only eat bland food. Eventually, all the maids were starving. When they couldn't take it anymore, they plotted to kill him while he was asleep, hoping he would ascend to immortality. Although the plot failed, it left a shadow in Shizong's mind, causing him to skip work for many years. He handed over state affairs to a man named Yan Song. Although Yan wasn't a eunuch, he mastered the manipulative tactics of eunuch. He had no other real skills. During the years he controlled the government, he made the Mongols lead their troops all the way to Beijing, something unprecedented. This forced the Ming Dynasty to agree to the Mongols' trade terms, and only then did they withdraw their troops. With such a big issue, Ming Shizong didn't execute Yan Song. One day, a Taoist priest suddenly appeared. He debated the path of immortality with Yan Song right in front of him. Yan Song lost the debate, and Ming Shizong executed him. If things had continued like this, the legacy built by Zhu Yuanzhang would have been destroyed. Finally, the 12th emperor, King Long Emperor, ascended the throne. His biggest trait was being obedient, listening to truly insightful advisors. He was not competitive or aggressive and never really wanted to be emperor, but fate had other plans. The brothers who were supposed to take over were eager to make a mark, and they all failed. This unexpected fortune landed directly on his head. The Ming Dynasty enjoyed peace for 6 years due to his reign. Why 6 years? Because his health was poor, and he died young after 6 years as emperor. Subsequently, the 13th emperor, Ming Shizong Wanli Emperor, ascended the throne. He was healthy and ruled for a full 48 years. He was the longest reigning emperor of the Ming Dynasty. During his reign, he experienced everything imaginable, almost going through all the phases of previous emperors, except he wasn't taken hostage abroad. He was also super fat and too lazy to attend court, missing court for over 20 years in a row. In other words, ministers hadn't seen the emperor's face in over 20 years. During his 48-year reign, the country fought 3 major wars, which basically drained the treasury. The Ming Dynasty was on a clear downward slope, unstoppable. As he was about to abdicate, The Jurchen tribe called Azanjoro appeared in the northeast. The leader of the tribe was Azanjoro Norachi. This marked the beginning of the Qing dynasty. There were 16 emperors in the Ming dynasty, and only 3 remained. They were Ming Guangzong, Wanli's son, and Wanli's grandsons Ming Zizong and Ming Saizong. These guys were the most unfortunate emperors. The legacy built by the founding emperor Zhu Yuanzhang was almost destroyed by those previous emperors. When the 14th emperor, Ming Guangzong, ascended the throne, he immediately fell seriously ill. At this time, he heard someone was offering elixirs of immortality, and he insisted on taking them. No one could stop him. After taking them, he died, ruling for less than 2 months. His son, Zhu Yuanzhang, had to ascend the throne as the 15th emperor, Ming Zizong. But he didn't value the throne at all and just wanted to be a carpenter. He spent almost all his time woodworking, leaving national affairs entirely to eunuchs. These eunuchs were impressive. They were selected by Ming Zizong, including the famous Wei Zhongxiang, the top-tier eunuch. Wei Zhongxiang controlled the Dongchang, caused chaos, killed almost all loyal officials, and held power over the court for 7 years. Ming Zizong Zhu Yuanzhang diligently worked as a carpenter for 7 years in such a corrupt and chaotic environment. Later, while playing, his boat capsized, and he died. At this point, his younger brother Zhu Yuanzhang ascended the throne as the 16th emperor, Ming Saizong Chongzhen. Throughout the entire Ming dynasty, he was the most unfortunate emperor. He was much better than his carpenter brother, cultured, ambitious, and decisive. Upon ascending the throne, he cut out the cancerous Wei Zhongxiang. However, by then, the Ming dynasty was already rotten beyond just a few issues. Additionally, during Chongzhen's reign, natural disasters were relentless droughts, locusts, plagues never stopped leading to massive peasant uprisings. One young rebel, Li Ziqing, fought all the way to the Forbidden City. Forced to his limits, Chongzhen took his own life under a fruit tree. The Ming dynasty, after 276 years and 16 emperors, came to an end.